All right. The way games are made is changing, and not really in a good way. More and more, games aren't made to please you, they're made to boost stock prices. And no story proves that better than Candy Crush. Look, here's what I mean. On the left is Candy Crush. It made $20 billion in sales. On the right, GTA 5 and Online, which combined made $8.5 billion. Candy Crush took 5 months to make. GTA, 5 years. One has 200 million monthly players, the other about 20 million. Two very different games. One's a cultural masterpiece, and the other a billion-dollar slot machine. Now, there's nothing wrong with gamified slot machines until they become the blueprint for how games are made. Because if games like Candy Crush win, games like GTA stop getting made. And that's when it gets dangerous. So no, this isn't just about Candy Crush. It's about what happens when not the best games win, but the best business model. Question. When a game is played by 5 billion people around the globe and still topping the charts 13 years later, do you ask what's the secret sauce of the game, or do you ask who made it rich? You ask who made it rich, of course. And if you follow the money, you'll find them. Officially, it was 2 game designers. One had the idea in a bathtub, and the other built the data machine behind it. But that's just a fake myth to give a billion-dollar game a humble origin story. The truth is, Candy Crush was not born in a bathtub, but in a spreadsheet built to scale and built to sell. And the men behind it? A ruthless consultant, a matchmaking tycoon, and the son of Britain's most notorious capitalist. Let's start with this one. Toby Rowland, co-founder of King and for a while its biggest shareholder.
My background's interesting because I think I come from 3 generations of entrepreneurs.
But to understand Toby, you need to meet his dad, once described as Britain's unpleasant face of capitalism. His dad was a corporate raider who deceived African dictators, stole their profits, and funneled the cash back to Britain. As he once famously said, you can never have enough enemies.
Do you think, finally, that the shareholders of a company are the best people qualified to make
the only
decisions
people, yes, of course,
today, like
yes. Not, certainly not journalists.
When he died, he left over £500 million. And that's the shadow Toby grew up in. Not just born into money, but born into a mindset. One where deception was the business model. And when King was born, that deception carried over. But not without the man who quietly funded most of King. Mel Morris, a flooring salesman turned one of Britain's richest men. Before King, he built UDate, the world's second biggest dating site, where he hired Toby as head of marketing. After selling UDate to Match.com, Mel bought his hometown football club and started King. Because while Mel brought the cash, another brought the strategy. A consultant who could sell like a shark, Riccardo Zacconi.
Inspiration can come anywhere, anytime. For example, Candy Crush was invented in the bathtub.
No, it wasn't. But let's not pop his corporate bubble just yet. Because it was he who truly turned King into what it is today.
We always had the ambition to grow, the ambition of, hey, this is where we want to go.
Riccardo wasn't a game designer, but he was a numbers guy, a reserved consultant, the banker type, hungry to conquer the world. He joined Mel and Toby over at UDate.
My father was a dentist, and I had a very obvious choice in front of me. I decided not to become a dentist. I wanted to have my own company and create something new.
And when King was born, Riccardo became the king himself, turning Candy Crush into the game it is today at the cost of people's addiction.
By the end of the month, the game went skyrocketed. I never experienced anything like that in my whole life. Basically, the users went up like a rocket.
But Riccardo didn't do it alone. 2 developers in particular created the game and the data machine behind it.
I think Riccardo challenged me to come up with can you make the best match 3 game ever? And I felt let's base it on candy, something people naturally are attracted to, they look pretty, and it really made the game stand out in the market.
And now the crew was complete. And what they built wasn't just a game. It was an addiction machine wrapped in candy. The thing is, they have been training for this. King started out as a gambling site. With every click, King learned what made people play and pay. And when Facebook and mobile gaming became a thing, King took all those lessons and built Candy Crush. Sweet, but deceptive. Now, the game itself is really simple. Match candies, clear levels, and feel good. Right off the bat, it hits you with a tutorial. Big arrows, shiny animations, flashy sounds. Every level has clear goals. Collect X amount of certain candy. The first levels are so easy, I didn't even have to do anything. The game was playing the game for me. But the more I progressed, the harder it got. If I failed a level, I lost a life. Lost all 5, can either sit and wait or simply pay. The button is green on purpose because green means go. Or in this case, go broke. And if you're broke and don't have money, go and beg your fake Candy Crush friends. That's also an option.
I really need you to send me more Candy Crush lives. Haven't you been getting my Facebook requests?
And if you sit idle for like 2 seconds, don't worry if Candy suggests a move. But that move might just be a trap. But don't feel bad. Even mathematicians say it's really, really hard. Not just hard, but NP hard. Just a fancy way of saying not even a supercomputer could solve the game quickly. And that's the thing. You're always so close, every single time. It's called the near-miss effect, something to keep your brain juiced up on hope.
In fact, the model with which we started with, the business model, was stopping the player from playing. The model we started with was, yeah.
After like a certain amount of time?
Yeah.
Or?
So basically what we do is you have all these levels and...
Yep, basically what they do is train your brain to crave what it cannot have. A delay loop designed to keep you coming back. Classic conditioning. And if you get bored, don't you worry. The devs got your back and keep adding new levels, new candy, magic beans, and jelly. Oh, and of course, new mechanics. But not to be fun to play, but to slow you down. Because slower means more attempts, and more attempts mean, well, more chances to pay. It's a Skinner box wrapped in sugar. Some are wrapped in Monopoly Men, and others in Royal Mascots or Pokemon. And it works. People get hooked. Really hooked. Just type Candy Crush addiction and watch what autofills on Google. No need to explain how bad it gets. From spending $500, $1,000, or $2,000 in a single day, people are addicted and are begging for help, confused how addictive a simple mobile game can be. In the media, Candy Crush was mocked, memed, and treated like a joke.
People taking a dump everywhere can't get enough of the app that's as addictive as crack, but far less rewarding.
Do you think the people making Candy Crush are even fucking playing it? No, they're just like, ha 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 ha.
Mario, don't play that game. It's not just candy. It's evil. Evil candy.
That's stupid. I'm playing it. Oh my God!
And other media outlets questioned the addiction problem on a more serious note.
Some people are playing the game for hours, and they might even be addicted to it.
Some people say they can't put the game down.
They have Candy Crush on here? No. Keep walking. You're an addict.
Am I the only person who doesn't play Candy Crush?
Yes.
Fine. I'm glad we cleared that up.
But while critics kept pointing fingers, King just smiled. With 90% of players never having spent a penny, they could hide behind numbers. But whenever they were asked about addiction, deflection.
I bring this up to you because I have a couple friends who are Candy Crush addicts, and they characterize themselves that way, and they're like, "Oh, I've got a problem," I've got to stop doing this.
Sure. Well, I think that first of all, I think that the Candy Crush is a great game. It's a fun game.
Fundamentally, games are fun. And fun is good for you.
That's King's official stance. Fun is good for you. Sure, why upset investors by admitting the game is just a Skinner box? Why admit anything if you can distract everybody, especially with marketing? Oh boy, do they have marketing. My favorite topic. Look at this. Because when I say marketing, I mean drones. In the world of marketing, not even the sky is the limit. To celebrate Candy Crush's 10th anniversary, King spammed New York's night sky with 500 drones, turning it into a flying billboard. Locals called it obnoxious. The senator called it profit-seeking, and one literally tweeted, hoping someone shoots them down. But hey, even if you shoot them down, you just need to turn on the TV to see what's going on there. An actual Candy Crush game show.
Now it's the largest interactive television experience ever. This is Candy Crush!
Real players in a real studio playing Candy Crush on a giant wall. The price? $100,000. The content? Watching people swipe candies for cash. But if that's not entertaining enough, how about reeling in a bunch of celebrities who probably don't even play the game themselves?
Hi everyone, I'm Chloe, and I'm hosting America's first ever Candy Crush All-Stars tournament.
Sweet.
I got so much candy, man. I got a sweet tooth.
And if you're not into music, don't you worry. They've put purple soda flooding New York streets. Or board game cafes in London. Or billboards that candify all of Madrid, because apparently the whole world is just one big level. But billboards are boring. How about some immersive films where playing candy propels you into the clouds, have you play the game upside down, or have you float through pink, sleepy dream worlds that swipe the stress away?
Swipe the stress away. Candy Crush. Play now.
And once you're really good at swiping your stress away, why not partake in Candy Crush's $1 million All-Stars tournament?
Candy Crush has been my companion for more than 10 years.
I downloaded the game when I was sick with COVID and couldn't put it down.
And before you know it, I found myself in this contest.
Crazy.
So crazy.
Very crazy indeed. The marketing machine didn't stop there. Commercial after commercial, the wiggling, jiggling, dancing, celebrity endorsing, sweeter than ever marketing nonsense pumped King's revenue from $60 million to almost $2 billion in only 2 years. Only Zynga, the other mobile empire now owned by Take-Two, managed to grow this fast. I talked about Zynga's crazy story here. If you want to give it a watch, you won't be disappointed. Anyways, with $2 billion now in revenue, it was time to take King and its sharks to its long-awaited throne. Two years after Candy Crush launched, King went public, valued at $7 billion. Inside the New York Stock Exchange, candy mascots were dancing in a fanfare Wall Street had never seen before.
Wouldn't it be great if the CEO popped out of one of those and then came to the set?
That would be remarkable.
Yeah, Ricardo would have probably preferred the mascot, because on that day, things did not turn out as sweet as planned.
And it's exactly like in the movies. So you enter in this room, which is full with traders and is very narrow about the first share in the company. So this was the positive moment. The less positive moment was that the stock price went down.
Shares tanked down 15%, making the worst IPO debut for a newly listed company in the US.
Massive question from the markets in terms of will the game still be there in a few years from now? Is it a one-hit wonder that is going to disappear after a few years?
But Ricardo had an answer. In his letter to shareholders, he pitched Candy Crush as bite-sized brilliance, the perfect way to spend 3 minutes of free time whenever, wherever. In the end, it didn't really matter. While King's stock flopped on day one, our sharks still became multimillionaires practically overnight. Ricardo, Mel, Seb, Thomas, except Toby. He had sold his stake in King 3 years earlier to go and build something more ethical. Manga High, an educational math game for kids. Ethical indeed, but not as lucrative, because good ethics don't ring the bell on Wall Street, you know? But shady tactics, they do ring the bell. Because just as the bells were ringing, the lawsuits came knocking. From investors and from players. Investors accused Ricardo of using materially inaccurate player data to inflate stock prices. Players sued King for quietly removing free lives, forcing users to buy more.
A lawsuit filed in Chicago accuses the game's maker of taking from players the one thing they need most to play.
But systemically deleting players' lives was just the beginning. After targeting players, King came for indie developers.
The makers of the super popular and addictive game have trademarked the word candy.
Yes, candy. Trademarked just because they could. Candy Swipe came out 2 years before Candy Crush, with candy, swiping, and even the word sweet. But to protect the bathtub myth, King flipped the script and accused Candy Swipe of infringement. And what can one guy do against $1 billion empire? Exactly, nothing. All he could do was write an open letter. Good for you, you'll win. I hope you're happy taking the food out of my family's mouth. But King didn't stop there. The next target, the Banner Saga, for using the word saga in a Viking game. Even Ricardo admitted it didn't resemble Candy Crush, but still, he tried to block the trademark to protect their brand. But enough was enough. Indie devs fought back and launched the Candy Jam, a protest with over 400 parody games to mock King. From Candy Fart Saga to Saga of Kersnuffle, the backlash got so big, King eventually backed down from trademarking candy, but only in the US. In Europe, the word candy is still trademarked. Anyways, it's good to know that a game about farting candy can still beat $1 billion bully. But while indie devs saw a bully, someone else saw a cash cow. And that someone was our beloved Bobby.
Activision Blizzard buys the company that makes Candy Crush for lots of billions.
Why this deal now? Why the maker of Candy Crush, and what does it do for Activision?
Well, we couldn't be more excited because it gives us an opportunity to participate in the fastest growing game market in the world, which is the mobile game market.
After all the lawsuits, the mockery, and the market crash, Ricardo still found a buyer. In 2016, Activision Blizzard dropped almost $6 billion to acquire King, not for mobile potential, but for $1 billion tax dodge. Activision had billions stuck offshore. If they brought that back to the US, of course, they would have to pay massive tax bill. But if they spend it on an overseas company, no taxes. Same money, same candy. So they used it to buy King. And just like that, Candy Crush became a loophole. And while the news anchors scratched their heads over the price tag, Bobby bragged about reaching more than 500 million users. And Ricardo? Well, he said this merger would bridge all platforms. By 2022, Activision made more money from Candy Crush than Call of Duty. And while one big fish was swallowing candy, another one, a much bigger fish, was already circling.
Microsoft announced today it will be buying the video game giant Activision Blizzard, $68 billion deal. So why do they want this company? What does it mean for both companies?
Well, it means Microsoft didn't just buy Call of Duty. They bought the thing that you play on the toilet and that never stops making money. So, on paper, it was about cloud gaming, the metaverse, and future-proofing Xbox. But in reality, it was about owning the most addictive, data-rich mobile empire on Earth. By 2022, Candy Crush was generating over $1 billion a year, with margins even Call of Duty couldn't touch. And unlike console games, Candy Crush didn't need hardware, development cycles, or even marketing. Just addiction and time. And once Microsoft owned it, things got really creepy. Users started seeing Candy Crush ads before even logging in, on corporate laptops, government computers, schools. It was outrageously intrusive. And now, Candy Crush still sits inside one of the world's most powerful tech empires, feeding data into Azure, fueling AI experiments, optimizing every tap, every swipe, and every dollar. And Ricardo, his bite-sized brilliance, is now feeding $1 trillion machine. After nearly a decade of milking dopamine for profit, he stepped away in 2020, along with Sepp and Thomas, and started Sweet Capital, a VC fund now bankrolling the next generation of attention-grabbing apps. In the end, King was not built to make great games, it was built to be sold. Candy Crush was just a delivery system. The real product was a business model. And now that model is quietly replacing the art of making games. Not with games that move us, but with games that manage us. Predictable games, profitable games, repeatable games. I do wish I could say creativity will win, but right now, the one that wins is the one that monetizes faster. And that's the future we're drifting into. One where Candy Crush founders get richer than GTA creators.
In news that may surprise you, despite churning out a string of successful GTA games for over a decade, the Housers' combined wealth is significantly below that of key players involved with Candy Crush Saga developer King. Riccardo Zacconi hit the 271st position thanks to his overall wealth of £354 million, while his fellow founder, Sebastian Knudsen, was 458th with £200 million. Top of the list in the gaming department is Derbyshire businessman Mel Morris, who happens to have a 12% stake in King and whose £430 million gets him to the 238th position. The list is a reminder that in today's environment, the people responsible for several mega hits like Grand Theft Auto, Red Dead Redemption, and Max Payne can be financially surpassed by a time waster that gamers are pretty dismissive of. For all your video game news, stay tuned at IGN.
And cut.